intro and the outro. Okay, you ready?
In the works with Brandon and Usa.
I love it.
Hey, do you remember?
Wait, did you not say thank you to Rabib? You said on the last podcast that you would always say thank you.
You know, you just started it so quickly, I forgot. Thank you, Rabib. Do you remember the 21st night?
Of September?
No, of October.
Oh. 26th?
21st.
20. No, I don't.
Yeah, me neither. Anyway. Yeah, that's the point, though. You don't remember that.
No.
Do you remember September 23rd?
No.
Do you remember what you ate 3 days ago?
Noodles.
How do you know that?
Because I've been on like the same diet.
Oh,
for,
okay.
like, the past week.
Can you recall at 2:30 p.m. what you were doing
2:30 p.m.
3 days ago?
3 days ago.
Oh, you might have a schedule. Never mind.
Yeah. I do have a schedule.
Do you remember what you were thinking about?
I wasn't thinking about anything
How do you know?
because I was playing my game.
Oh,
Yeah.
so you were thinking about your game.
Yeah.
Wow, you scheduled in game time. Okay. Anyway, but like, okay. 3 months ago. Do you
What
remember
was 3
anything
months?
about 3 months ago?
Well, in August?
Is that August? Yeah, maybe.
Well, it was my girlfriend's birthday that
Mhm.
month. Also my friend's birthday that month.
Mhm.
Also my other friend's birthday that month.
Awesome. Is that kind of about it off the top of your head?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Pretty
How
much.
about?
Oh, there's that shooting star thing that was really cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember what you ate on the 22nd of that month?
No, I don't.
Okay, so long drawn out way to illustrate my point. We don't really remember everything all the time, and it's kind of easy to forget. Do you? At some point in your life, there have probably been extremely sad moments, right?
Yeah.
And extremely happy moments, or very interesting moments, or particular feelings with certain situations, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember those all the time, exactly how they felt?
Not necessarily.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you could remember something happy happened, but until you kind of like dive into the memory, you may not remember how it felt. Or you may remember wrong. A similar situation could happen again, and then you would go, oh, that's how it felt. It's a reminder, right?
Yeah.
So kind of the point of all that BS is that, you know, you don't really remember day to day, week to week, everything, all the lessons you've learned, all the experiences you've had. And it kind of poses a problem, don't you think? Like, it's just easy to forget where you are and where you've been, generally. And I kind of got this idea or thought process from watching a movie called Memento. So
Memento, are you talking about the rated 2 or 8 point something IMDb rating movie?
I mean, maybe.
From the year 2000?
That's all I remember.
With the
right?
open parentheses, 2000 close parentheses?
Yes. So I was presented to it because I was talking to, I think he's my step cousin. I don't know. Which it's sad he just left. But it's good because that means he's going on his life. Out in Nevada. Yeah.
You say Nevada?
Nevada. I don't know. Wherever it is. But we were having a conversation. I was like, because he's a lot older than I. And I was just like, you know, from day to day, how do you remember, you know, lessons that you've learned? And how do you remember kind of goals and feelings that you've had about something? Because it seems like, you know, I'll be passionate and have a real drive or a feeling. And then like a week later, I'll just completely forget that that's how I felt. And something will tip me off that that's how I felt. I'll think about maybe that day on accident, like something on that particular day I was reminded somehow. And then I was like, oh, that's how I felt about that. And then I'm like, get fired up in the same way, and I continue in that direction, right? So we were talking back and forth, and he mentioned a movie I should watch that had something kind of like similar, right, but not quite the same. And the movie was called Memento, and kind of what it's about is a guy who has damage to his hypothalamus, and pretty much he loses the ability to encode new memories. He remembers everything before, well, the way a regular person would remember things before the damage to his hypothalamus, but afterward he can't remember new things. So it's like every couple of minutes or every so often he just forgets everything except for the memories that he had before. So he'll be sitting in a room and suddenly he's just like, where am I? How'd I get here? What's going on? Just every single time. And so the point of the movie is he's trying to find his wife's killer with this condition. And I mean, you watched the movie. I told you go watch the movie.
Yeah, I did watch the movie.
How did you feel about that movie?
I thought it was just the movie in general was very interesting in the way it was structured as well.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought it was really interesting seeing everything unfold because, he can't make new memories, and he doesn't just lose his memories every time he kind of goes to sleep, but he loses his memories just randomly in the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's just like every
really,
couple of minutes or so or something like that.
And so to, I guess, quote, remember some of these things, he takes photos and writes down on those photos. And I definitely think that's a way to go. Just because in, everyday life without that condition,
Yeah.
people still do that. It's still nice to remember those type of things and just look back on them. So it's definitely good memories.
Yeah, I will say, because that whole movie, it's kind of structured backwards. I don't want to spoil this movie, so if I'm a little vague intentionally, that's because it's a movie you should just go watch. It's called Memento, made in the year 2000. It is a really good movie. So just if you don't want to any sort of details or anything else, I mean, go watch it. But I'm gonna try my best not to spoil any of the parts because it is one of those movies. The first time you watch it is probably gonna be the most like experiential, like how do you said it's probably the best time you're gonna watch it just because how interesting and how the twist that all the twists that come with the movie. It's certainly something to watch, but it's just it's structured to where it'll play a scene. It kind of starts off with an intense scene and then it'll play a scene and then it'll show it kind of goes backwards. The present is kind of the end of the movie almost, and it just works its way scene by scene backwards, and so you kind of get more details and more details and more details. I think that's structured beautifully to go and show kind of his condition, because the first scene, you have no idea what's going on, just like him, and you only gain more information by watching these scenes backward, but you only know the future and not necessarily the past. And so in a sense, it's almost like him, except he's only aware of the present, right? Mm-hmm. And so you don't know anything that happens before, only when the next scene happens. And it just, I feel like it just kind of goes into that, just exactly his experience with things, because you're just as confused as he is. Yeah. But you end up making more sense of it.
No, yeah, definitely.
Because you see what happens.
And that's what I like about it. It's like, oh, it's all making sense now. But for him,
it still doesn't make any fucking sense. And that's that really posed more questions for me, is like, I think it was a great analogy for us day to day of, maybe we do keep memories. We do have better memories day to day, but we lose so much. We don't remember everything because it's not necessary, right? We don't remember everything every day. We don't remember all our feelings, and it's not something we're like keeping up on all the time. So it's just really easy to forget, and we're not as far off from this guy as we think we are. We don't have perfect memories of each day, of each month, each year. So there's so much we lose, so many things we forget. And things we're like, okay, I'm gonna do things this way now, and then you just don't, because you go to sleep and wake up and you forget all about what the hell you're doing. The thought you had that just kind of slipped your mind and went away. And I almost thought that was kind of like a thing for as far as like humanity as well. I mean, there's so much we forget every time someone dies, or every time generations kind of move on. How many things have we forgotten over the years that we've had to relearn, So I thought it was certainly something kind of interesting to parallel to your life. Are you functioning the way this guy is with, you can't remember as much as, you think you do? How do you know who you are if you can't remember your past or what you do? And, maybe you remember it the wrong way. So how do you know what's true or not in that sense? And that kind of lends itself to some things that happen in the movie, like manipulation. Like, are you being manipulated? Not necessarily on purpose by one single person, but, how much easier is it to push you in a certain direction because you don't remember what has happened? You didn't learn, you learned some lessons, but you don't remember all those lessons off the top of your head. It's only when you're reminded of them do you learn that sort of stuff. So that's kind of the question I've been asking today is, how do you stay on your passion and goals, without forgetting? How do you remember who you are and where you've been? And how do you learn lessons and remember what you have felt, in those lessons? How do you remember what drives you forward? And that's kind of the question I'm asking today. What are your thoughts on that sort of thing?
Well, you posed like 4 different questions.
Yeah. Well, just on the whole thing. I don't know. Okay, I do that. It's kind of stupid. I need to ask one question at a time. But for me, it's like the whole context of it all, not necessarily each question.
So overall, personally, I want to say I don't have a horrible memory, but it does get pretty bad sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Bro, you don't even remember what you ate like 3 months ago.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's definitely more of the subject of if something it causes me more like intense emotion, I would choose to just forget it.
You wouldn't let it stick?
Yeah. Rather than letting it just be there and process through it. So that is a really bad habit that I have. And so so right after that, I'm wondering, why am I upset again? Why is this happening?
You didn't learn your lesson, or
and then I have to ask a person near me, next to me, I'm talking to, just, hey, what were we talking about? And so that's been fun.
Yeah, just realizing, oh, I've been through this before, but
yeah. So in a way, it's more of like dissociating from everything.
Yeah, and I feel
forgetting everything.
I feel like that is rough, because then you're kind of like in the movie. I mean, you're just kind of at the whim of everything else.
Yeah,
right.
So
people and how things work.
It's definitely possible to not necessarily have that medical condition like he did, but in terms of just how you're raised or how things affect you, you can choose to forget things or make it harder to remember because there are things that you don't want to do or feel or just deal with in general. And that's what I have been doing a lot.
Something for me that I've noticed is when you're out of a certain context or an environment for a long time, you forget how it was to be in that environment a lot. And that's just, for me, like that's a lot of things that are obvious, say in like high school, because of, you know, the way your schedule is particularly set up, and maybe, you know, there are just ways things work and lessons you learned through that. But then you get older and your context isn't the same. You know, you're not forced to go to school. You're not forced to do that. You know what I mean? Like your context is a little different. And so you almost forget how it was to be in that situation. So when you're talking to people who are in high school, you're like, oh, that's kind of crazy the way you feel about that. And then you think to yourself, oh, shoot. You know, I get it because I was there. And you have to almost go back and remember and be like, okay, for me, how was it? You know, how was it for me? Because everyone thinks they were a lot better than they were, right?
Yeah.
And it reminds me of someone speaking to how, like in like training sense, right? They're going through, I think it was like a boot camp or whatever, and you know, they went through that and they had their career in military, and they came back, and they were some trainers at this boot camp or whatever, and they were trying to raise standards, you know, like we need people to be up here, people to be up here, people up here, you know, more, better.
Yeah.
And then one of the dudes was just like, okay, he still had all the records of all their, you know, times, you know, all their, all the stuff they did, anything they did wrong, you know, all the notes that were kept on them, they still had, and they kind of handed it back to everyone. And then afterward, they're like, oh, okay, maybe we don't need to go so goddamn high. Because, you know, you forget how it was, and you think, how should it be? And so, yeah, I don't know. So I just kind of looked up some stuff, and also I thought about it, and I really thought about it, because in the movie, what he was talking about is there seems to be some formations of memory, and I don't know how true to psychology this is, that just over time you can develop, right? And he is all about his system. If you remember in the movie, like almost every scene, he talks about his system, and it works, and there's a reason he has a specific way he does his system.
Yeah. Specific way he does his system, because he can't rely on his memory.
Yeah. And it's kind of interesting is, how do you develop that system if you can't remember anything? And I guess there's probably some sort of, you know, thing in the brain where, okay, maybe you can't make new memories, but there are different ways to make memories, or something like that. But how I equated it to our situation here as regular people, and not necessarily having that deficiency, is it's all a habits game. You know?
See, I was thinking that too, but at the same time, I'm thinking, how does he even develop these habits?
Exactly. See, that's why I'm saying if we translate it to us, 'cause I have no idea how he develops any of that. You're kind of scooting off screen.
I'm
Okay.
still in frame.
All right, but yeah, how the hell do you even how do you even do that? And it was kind of interesting if we translate it to us. And I was like, okay, it's a habits game. I heard a quote, and it was by James Clear. He was actually the one who wrote Atomic Habits, which I thought was funny when I came across this. I was like, oh, read that, know about that. And
I actually reread it and finished it again.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It is pretty good, isn't it?
It is good.
It's a good reminder.
Well, okay, so I stopped at like chapter 10 before, so I was like almost done with the book, so I just decided just to go all the way back and just restart
and read
it.
the whole thing.
Yeah,
I finished it a couple months ago, but I may go back and reread it with a different perspective. But he said, we do not rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. And I was like, hey, he's talking about his system all the time, and this is perfect. You don't rise to that occasion of your goals, you fall back on your system. So if you are trying to, not forget so much, or you're trying to, follow your goals and such, don't rely on your willpower or remembering all the time. Get a system that's so good that you don't have to remember what you're doing. you're just doing your
You're just
system,
doing it. Wow.
and it'll, you know, come out. Because that's what the guy in the movie's doing. He's relying on his system, and every, you know, couple of minutes he has no idea what the fuck's going
A
on.
system that comes out of nowhere and that
Yeah.
he just internalizes automatically.
But here's the thing. I mean, okay, one of the things, he's got like pictures, and he writes on them, right? And he recognizes his own handwriting. So he's using stuff he already learned. So he's like, oh, something's in my pocket, you know, and he looks at pictures and it's his own handwriting. So he's like, oh, this is me. So I guess he is kind of figuring it out every time that it's him.
So
and
do you
his
think
stuff.
he just figures out a new system, but the same system over and over
Yeah,
again?
I think it might be that. I think, you know, way neural pathways develop, maybe it's easier in his brain to like reach back into a pocket. Maybe he's reached into his pocket so many times that his brain's like, that's just, you know, a thing you do
And then he
without
can just
remembering.
be like, oh,
and
what
so he
is
reaches
this?
into his pocket without knowing, and then he goes, oh.
Instead of a wallet, it's just like a pack of
Yeah,
pictures.
and so I guess if he keeps it in the same pocket all the time, or he just checks his pockets automatically. I don't know how it works, but
I mean, that would
maybe
make sense.
that's what it seems like. He recognizes his own handwriting, because, you know, it's not from birth he had this condition. He lived, you know, he had a whole career before his condition.
career we don't even know is true.
I know, right? It could be wrong, but that's the thing, though, is, you know, I think he is figuring out. He's like, I recognize this is me. This is what's going on. And he flips through all the pictures, and it's like, okay, I get what's going on now. And
I still don't understand how you can get that from pictures.
I don't know.
Like, if I had that condition and I just
If
had
I
a
had that
picture
condition.
if I just had a picture of you and I just look at it, I was like, okay, who the fuck is this?
Yeah,
Why
but
is this?
it's your own handwriting, though.
Yeah.
And you recognize your own handwriting, and you're like, you trust yourself, right? I guess it depends on what kind of
But it's
person
just
you
like,
are.
who, what,
Why? Yeah.
you know, there's no information about it.
And that's where I'm wondering, how much does the brain learn in other ways too? And that would be, you know, that would have been a good thing to research before talking on this podcast, is that condition. You know, are there other forms of learning with that condition that happens, that, you know, no, you don't remember anything, but you're able to condition yourself. You're able to learn other things in a different type of way. Because I do think there are different types of learning, right?
I want to say there is, but what they showed in the movie wasn't.
It was a real condition.
Yeah.
It was a real condition.
Yeah.
you know?
No,
Okay.
what they showed in the movie was like the way they tested it was it was more like they couldn't, even if they kept failing a test, they would never learn from their mistakes, because they would actually just forget about it and keep doing that.
Yeah.
So in terms of the movie, I definitely don't think there is a way to condition yourself like that.
Because I don't know, because I was reading a thing on it after I watched the movie, and they were like, yeah, everything about that movie is pretty accurate, except for the fact that he always finds his car.
True.
I was like, you know what? That is a great point.
he does always find his car.
And he's not supposed to do that. But yeah, so we kind of fall to the level of our systems. So we have to get better systems, right? And systems of, I guess, remembering or habits. So for a system, I mean, I guess if your goal is maybe to become a better writer, I mean, maybe you sit down and you write every day, or you read and you write, and maybe you don't know why you're doing it perhaps, but it's just so ingrained into a habit that's what you do, that's what you're going to do. And over time, working on those things, you're going to get better, even if you don't necessarily remember, I have to practice writing today. You just go and you write, and it's a practice in itself, right? So I guess that's kind of what that's saying in general. Like for him, it was the pictures and the writing to remind yourself. Maybe you have a sticky note on your computer with a quote and you remember, you know, it's like maybe your short-term goal, like, hey, like I want to get to this in a month, and for some reason this quote or whatever really reminds you of that is a memory you have. So when you see it, you're like, oh yeah, that's how I felt about that. Or a song you play every morning and you're like, oh yeah. But What he was saying as far as changing habits, one would be like changing your environment. Make an environment that's conducive to that habit. You know, so if you don't want any distractions, maybe you shouldn't place distractions in your environment, right? So maybe, hey, I need to work on all this stuff. Yeah, but why do I have my game console right here?
He also mentioned about that, like even if you were to like play on your console or something, just take time to put it away to where it's inconvenient for you to do
make it difficult. Make it like I gotta take it out of the box, plug all the wires in, hook up the controller, you know, turn it on, do the updates, you know, all the
just to play.
And if you really want to play, you're gonna do that, right? If you're gonna, you know, if you're like, I have about an hour I'm dedicating to playing, you're gonna do that. But if not, I mean, you're gonna be like, do I really want to play this fucking game?
But yeah, like you said, just setting up your surroundings just so you can do what you want.
Makes it easier. Or stuff that's inspiring, or you're trying to be an artist, and what's better, blank walls or like posters of patterns and colors and pictures and stuff like that? You know, maybe all those pictures, patterns, colors are more inspiring than, you know, a blank wall. So setting up that environment, I know for me, for like guitar, you know, I haven't had as much time to do it, you know, lately in the past like year and a half. But what made it easier is I hung my guitars on the wall, because then I can just pick it up off the wall and start playing. Whereas before I had them in their cases and kind of in the closet or over here under this, and you just never pick it up because it's not right there. But they're on the wall. I'll be sitting at my desk and I'll be like, you know, resting between sets of math, you know, and I'll just be like, oh, I'm feeling something. And then I quite literally, I reach up, take my guitar off the wall, and I'll play for, you know, 15 minutes, and then I'll put it back up. And then I'll continue what I was doing. And so just that it's accessible.
Quick and easy.
It's making it easy as opposed to like with the console, making it difficult. So habits game in that aspect. The social.
What do you think he did in the movie
for his environment? Well, I mean, I think it was like the coat pockets, putting everything in his pockets. I mean, it looked like his setup for stuff was always in the same places. That's what I think it was. It was just like, because
he was pretty much setting up for the next time he would just forget.
He knew he would forget. It looked like in each scene, anytime he knew he was going to forget, he tried to do something that would help him remember. Because it's almost like, it's like every time, you know, he had to figure out where he was, and he knows he's going to forget. I mean, I do this. I know, you know, you're going to forget about things, right? So you write them down. That's what he does. That's his system. And also maybe he'll position himself in certain ways, even when he's manipulating himself to do something. He'll set it up so he knows, so that because he knows the result of when he's going to forget. He knows how he'll think about it, so he sets it up in that manner.
So the equivalent to a regular person would just be like getting your clothes set up for the next day, so you can just get up and just change. You don't have to go through the hassle of like grabbing your clothes and doing it.
Or if you know that every time you're done with your dish, you set it on your desk, and then you come back later and you're like, oh my God, all these dishes on my desk or whatever. So instead you walk over and put it in the sink. And you got to deal with dishes later, but now when you come back, you have a clean desk, right? And so it's easier to do your work. Whereas before you're like, oh, this dirty dish, now I got to do this. And now you're into chores, you know yourself. The quote is like, know thyself or something like that. It's like, if you know what you're going to do, don't allow yourself to do it. Set it up a different way. You gotta play a game against yourself. You're playing chess against your own mind, your habits, you know. You're at war with yourself, and be a better strategist.
How do I fight myself?
You know you're an idiot, so manipulate yourself. In the works. No. But social environment as well. Surround yourself with people who are going to where they're in context with your goals and I guess your morals too. If somebody didn't match your morals and you hung out with them all the time, you're going to end up, being on the edge of your morals all the goddamn time. Right? But other people who share the same morals, you won't have to worry about it as much. You won't have to exercise willpower. It'll just be something that all of you guys don't do this particular thing, or say like smoking or something. None of your friends smoke. How likely are you going to be to just start picking up cigarettes? Not really likely, but if one person smokes, the likelihood of at least one other person or more, picking up that habit, it jumps up a lot. And, 2 people smoke out of your 5 friends, that someone else might pick it up. 3 people, 4 people. What if you're the only one who doesn't smoke? You might have one at some point every once in a while. Who knows? But
yeah, I guess that's where like the socialized stuff comes in, like people who do social drinking or social smoke.
Yeah, because if they wouldn't drink otherwise, but since they're out and about and with people who generally drink, it's the environment. So if, say, you're trying to stay away from alcohol and all your friends, maybe they all socially drink just like you, maybe don't go out in that manner. Maybe hang out with your friends in a different way. If you don't want to, have a lick of alcohol or anything. And some people, it's not a big deal. They have the willpower, the habit. They've been not drinking for so long. It doesn't matter to them. They can go out and it not be a problem. If for you it's a problem, then maybe don't go out.
Yeah.
Just kind of cut those things, nip them in the butt. Yeah, let's see. Oh yeah, change your system to meet your goals. Yeah, that's what I had before. So it was discipline to your system was something else. So kind of adhere to what you're doing. Consistency. It's like reps in the gym. It's for building your habits and such. And when you adhere to more discipline, I almost feel like it takes off that responsibility on your brain to have to go and get something done. Kind of like that writing I was talking about before. If what you do every day is at this particular time, go and write, then you're just going to write. Some days it may not be as great as others, but you're going to get the writing done. Whereas if you don't really have that sort of discipline, it may take a lot of willpower to go, oh, okay, sit down and write. And you sit down and you're like, oh, I'm hungry. And then you gotta now fight all of everything else to go and sit down and write. So that's certainly something. And another one that I heard was tracking progress. And a lot of these are in, the book Atomic Habits. I realized as I was writing these things out and kind of looking them up, I'm like, man, maybe I should just drop the book here. Read this.
No, I'm really glad that it kind of went into more of the habit type of talk with the movie because
that's what it seems. I mean, there are certain habits that you would do that would help this, but it is a habits game.
Yeah. I'm just glad because I reread that book maybe like 4 days ago.
Oh.
I was like, yes.
You're like, oh, this.
Go.
You're watching the movie. Oh, okay. If he just does this. No.
Yeah. So,
but yeah, track progress. It'll allow you to see what you're actually doing. What are you doing? If you're in the gym and you're counting reps and stuff for how many you can do in a minute, and say you don't track and you just forget, maybe where you were, you're like, man, I'm just not making any progress.
Yeah, that's where I am now.
Yeah, right. But let's say maybe you have. Maybe in the beginning you could only do like 12 push-ups in a minute, right? And then now you're doing like, 20 or 30. But for some reason you just don't remember the fact that you were only doing 12. And you go, if you were tracking, you'd be like, oh,
I made a lot of progress.
I've actually made a good amount of progress in what I'm doing. And I made more progress here when I was doing these things. Maybe I should do more of those. Maybe I should do that method. So it just kind of shows you. And with this, like in the movie, his tracking of progress was pictures and, tattoos and stuff like that. Stuff that was a little more permanent.
I think it was definitely more the tattoos than the pictures.
So the progress tracking was tattoos. I think pictures were more like short-term things.
Yes.
and long-term tracking was hit tattoos for him. And so it just allows you to see where you've been, what you've done, and tracking progress. You can be recording, you can be taking pictures, you can write things down, keep a spreadsheet. Like, it doesn't have to be just, just like today I did da, 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 da. It could be a progress picture. It could be, maybe if you're trying to one of the techniques was like marbles in a jar, right? I think in Atomic Habits, it was like every time you do the thing you were needing to do, you just put the marble.
Oh, it was paper clips. Yeah.
In the other jar.
Yeah. A guy would be working in his office, and every time he would make a phone call, he would place one paper clip into an empty one, and then just keep doing that every phone call he got.
And he was trying to empty the.
Yeah. So he got a visual idea of like how much he was going to do, and he got that extra bit of dopamine because he got to place the extra paper clip.
There you go. And you're trying to empty it. Yep. And I mean, there's a certain number of paper clips.
Yeah, 280.
There you go. Certain number of calls. Yeah.
I'm pretty confident though.
Yeah.
I'm pretty confident that it was 280.
But that's like a short-term progress tracking, but for what he was doing, that's necessary. It's like, because you imagine without that, you're just phone call after phone call after phone call. Imagine you didn't count that. After a while, you're just fucking tired, man. Yeah. You're just dog tired, and you just want to be done with it, and you don't care how much it was, and you're like, oh, maybe I'll do a couple more, but maybe that couple more only brought you up to 55 instead of 280. So, keeping that progress lets you know where you are, and I feel like it's kind of inspiring because where you can get to, or you can kind of grind a little bit, whereas before it's kind of really hard to grind because you don't know how far you've been or how far you have to go. You're just kind of out in the ether somewhere and trying to do whatever, and that's a terrible place to be. And that's something I noticed a lot, like with me and my progress. If I track it and keep an idea on it, I do better. If I don't, I feel like I'm just kind of lost. Even if I may be slowly inching forward, I just feel kind of lost as a whole. So I feel like tracking, like some sort of visual tracking in a short-term way or a long-term way, is just a very, very good way to just give yourself feedback on where you're at and what you need to do. Another thing would be coming up with a plan. And this one could be misconstrued easily, because it's like, oh, plans. I'm not a plan type of person, or I'm too busy, or all my plans change. The plan would just be, a little more, it'd be like commander's intent, like just, it could be specific. Maybe you have a specific schedule you're writing out each day, or it could be more broad, like kind of do these things, how you have to get it done by this day. You at least have to make it to this level. So something a little more broad.
Okay.
And you write them down in a document, Excel sheet, whatever, put up a poster, whatever it is. And then whenever you forget what you're doing, or you're like, I got nothing to do, look at your plan and be like, oh, today I'm supposed to be, or by this deadline, I'm supposed to do this. I have a doctor's appointment here. I have to go to school all these days. Today is actually the only day I really have to work on this, or I have to work on this before that deadline. So then you're like, okay, I think I can get something done.
It's definitely easier to get things done when you have a plan.
Yeah. And what I would definitely emphasize is when I was kind of, going through this information, is plans change.
Oh, always. Yeah.
And allow for organic change, and set. One thing I saw for like longer term goals is every week reflect on, how you did. And then every month reprioritize, like what is actually important. And I would say the time frame is really dependent. So it's like, you don't have to do this every week or every month, but depending on what you're doing, every so often you would want to reprioritize. Every so often you would want to reflect. Is this the course I'm supposed to be going? Should I change it? And that's something to do continually or on a periodic basis. And that'll allow your plans to actually fit with what you're doing, which means you're more likely to actually do them. Or, maybe you think you made your plans a certain way and you're just like, I cannot follow these at all. Change it to where you can, work with yourself here.
I for some reason, when it comes to working with yourself, that's something I recently done with my sleep. For the longest, I want to say years, it was always, I want to wake up at this time, no later, no earlier. And that made it really difficult to do.
Because when you fail, then you just lay in bed.
Yeah. And so, as of recently, with the help of my partner, I made it to where I made a goal to just wake up before a certain time, not really a specific time, but just as long as it's before this
like
time,
a window.
I'm good.
Like between this time and this time, if I get up.
Not even like between. It's literally just before. Just before this
10
time.
o'clock, wake up.
Yeah.
Oh, it's 8. Okay, I'll just wake up now. Oh, it's 9. I'll just get up now. Okay.
Exactly. So that's the easiest way I could make that habit.
And has it been
easy.
working for you?
Yeah, it definitely has. I've definitely been waking up earlier, random times. Today, I woke up at like 7.
Hey, I did too. That's late for me. I usually wake up at 6, but I was like, I'll sleep in a little bit.
But yeah, I set my alarm at 6:30. I woke up freezing cold in my house, had to turn on the heat, went back to bed. I was just like, I'm just gonna keep hitting snooze until it's like 7 o'clock, and then I got up.
That's, I kind of do the same thing. I give myself enough time to wake up and hit the snooze button, because I feel like just waking up and going doesn't always work for me. Especially when I'm coming off some dreams. I'm thinking about those dreams a lot, and I don't want to get up because I want to still keep my mind in that kind of dreamy brain space and think about those with a little more rational thought before I open my eyes. And now all of a sudden everything comes flooding back and you're like, life. So that's oddly specific. Sorry.
Yeah, so that's been really helping a lot. And as soon as I get the hang of waking up at before that time, I'll just go ahead and make that habit a little more strict.
Oh, and just kind of like, yeah. Okay.
So instead of just before, 10 o'clock, I would finally have the in between of like between this time and this time.
Would you have
just narrow it down?
Would you do it for maybe bedtime, like be in bed by this time? Not necessarily sleep, but at least in bed by this time, because then you're getting on both ends. Like, because that's really how the sleeping habit works, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to get up if you didn't sleep last night.
No, for sure.
So
that's been really nice.
Okay. The last kind of thing that I have just on this thought is, in the movie, you notice Leonard is, every time he forgets something, the first thing he does is try to figure out what's going on. That's like the immediate thing every time he resets like that, he always tries to figure out and then act in those small moments. And that's how that's how he gets places, is because he doesn't just like forget and then go, oh, that's interesting, and then forget again and then go, oh, that's interesting.
I don't feel drunk.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that.
I feel like, okay, cool.
He tries to figure out what's going on and then act from there. So the last kind of thing I have is act, become aware of yourself, in the sense of, have I been sitting here forever? Or maybe have I forgot about things? What's going on? Try to reevaluate your situation and make a move. Some sort of move. And in the movie you see, maybe he'll only make like one small step, one kind of thing. He'll travel to this place and then he stops, or he'll do this, or he'll write this thing down once before he has to figure out everything over again. But the whole time he just keeps going, because he's taking one step, then one step, then one step, and then after so long, that's a lot of goddamn steps.
That is.
And so take incremental actions You don't have to make large, huge steps. Just take your little tiny 2 feet and go 1 step.
Oh wow, it's like Atomic Habits.
I know.
Every little thing is just an atomic.
Oh,
little...
that is the whole basis of the thing. Atomic small.
But
I love how overlap
just
this
a
is.
tiny thing that you do that just keep adding up.
And also something in that book that I remember is the 2-minute rule. I think Raviv mentioned that. Just start something for 2 minutes. You'd be surprised what you could get done in 2 minutes. And most likely you're going to do it for more than 2 minutes. But just do it for 2 minutes, dude.
I definitely want to say that the book more went towards of do things that you can accomplish in 2 minutes.
Did it?
Yeah.
Because I always thought it was like what you do.
That's what I thought too, until I looked at it again and I was like, oh, that's a little different.
Okay. I mean, it works with what we're saying here, though.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It could honestly be both.
It can be both.
Because if, do what you can do in 2 minutes, well, I can do this in 2 minutes, and then you get it done. But also the likelihood of you stopping there isn't
the thing with the
likely.
2-minute rule in the book Atomic Habits was if you can do it in less than 2 minutes, go ahead and do it, because those 2 minutes are your atomic habits. Those are the little building blocks that make you like 1% better each day.
Okay.
That will add up.
Okay, I thought it was the other way around, but I mean that
both make sense.
They both make sense, and I feel like they both work.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
I mean, do a tiny step.
Our memory was wrong.
Yeah. But yeah, do a tiny step, right? And that tiny step will get you just a little further.
Yeah, it could lead you to much more.
And if it leads you to another step, take that next step, and then you just keep going. And then make sure you record it all, because then you look back and you go, oh God, I went 100 steps in this, past, 200 minutes. That's accurate, right?
Yeah.
In the past 200 minutes, I've made 100 steps, and I'm a lot further along than I was before. Or it could be, I did a step today, a step tomorrow, and then you at least got 7 steps towards something after a week. So,
but yeah, 2-minute rule. It's taking something large and scaling it down within 2 minutes.
Increments, little increments. Okay. So the next thing I kind of want to ask, because that's kind of what I had written down. I should have just reread that book and applied it to the movie. But what right now are you going to apply these principles to? Because that's kind of our whole thing here is we actually got to do it.
So right now, I've already made a few adjustments, like my sleep. I've been better on my eating habits. Because of the sleep, I'm able to do my other small things easily, like your basic washing your face, brushing your teeth, doing your hair, that sort of stuff. And I have definitely taken that 2-minute rule and have been breaking it down into, I told you earlier, about therapy.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to find a therapist within less than 2 minutes, and I just need a scheduled appointment. Will probably just take less than 2 minutes too. So it's definitely a good way to get things done for sure.
Yeah.
And so far I just want to slowly better myself, but you can't add on too much at once,
because then it becomes that whole pile of shit that weighs you down.
So I'm definitely just going to work on maybe a max of 2 or 3 things at a time, just so I don't overwhelm myself.
Yeah. I know for me, my biggest thing that I need to apply this to is my schoolwork, because it's kind of hard to drop yourself into, because you're going to be sitting there for like an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, or even spread out throughout the day.
Hey, it was number 3 on Atomic Habits.
What was
Make it attractive.
That's what I'm trying to do, and that's kind of a big difficulty, and something that I need to utilize is tracking of some sort for my schooling. some sort of data analytic thing where it's, hey, you did this many problems, or you worked on things for this much, you hit these concepts or whatever, and then the results of the test, right? And so you could see, so I could visually see, you know, what I need to do, or maybe for each unit I have to study, maybe put a paper clip, something like that, so that I can see, okay, I got that one done, the next one done, something like that. Because knowing you're going to be, that's where I kind of get lost in that ether, like I was talking about before. I know I'm going to be sitting there for a couple of hours no matter what, so it's just then it's like, I don't want to sit down.
I totally understand.
I don't want to sit down and do this.
The only way I could get past through high school was just fidgeting with stuff. I would be solving my Rubik's Cube in the middle of class, and I'd try so hard not to make any noise.
Yeah, you're like,
That's the only way I would pay attention. That's the only way that, like, my dopamine would kick in, and just like, you know, I'm enjoying learning this, but I need to do something.
and that's something I need to do, is how can I get into my studies? How can I track that, show myself that what I'm doing is reaching a level that I, you know, wasn't at before, and consistently doing that. So I'd be incentivizing myself to go and do that. How can I make it easy socially and environmentally to sit down or stand up, whatever I'm doing, and work on these things, these concepts, run it through. And I know next podcast we wanted to talk about like community and finding a community and working on that, because I mean, we both know that's something, you know, we've at least had before and need again.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we're in need of community, guys.
yeah.
Maybe we can build our own.
But yeah, I mean, it's
all of us.
It's a little different, but yeah, kind of. But that's, yeah, and all these things that we speak about, you know, it's stuff that, you know, we have to work on ourselves. So I don't know, at some point it would be nice to maybe do a podcast of how we've utilized these things, or how we're utilizing these things that we mention in our podcast. So it not only does it ground us to what we're saying, but also so it doesn't sound like hollow words that we're just putting out there. You know, it's we're walking, you know, we're walking our talk, and it might be an interesting thing. But I mean, that's kind of all I got right there.
That's all I have.
I mean, it's hard to remember and hard to put things at the forefront of your mind, but you know, write them down, journal. I mean, I sometimes like just write things down, like a journal or whatever. And I was flipping through the other day. I was like, oh, I felt that way about this one thing. And it was kind of interesting remembering how I felt about things. And it's like, you know, how have I improved in this aspect of my life, but also how have I kind of regressed in others? I'm like, oh, how do I get back to that feeling that I had, that sort of drive or that sort of direction, but with these new things I learned. So kind of augmenting where I am now, and not necessarily go backwards, but go forwards with what I have. So I don't know. So go read that book, Atomic Habits, man.
Yeah,
I almost feel like now we should have like a book link
like
or something.
Everyone has, or not everyone, but so many people have read that book and have quoted from that book, and we're just another pair
and we're just
doing that.
We're just more parrots, just talking out there. Okay, well, I mean, that's pretty much all we got. So we're gonna get going.
We're gonna edit this in, right? Or should we just click it? Do you think we could just click it?
No, we put it in last time. We'll edit it.
Yeah, but this is a lot more work.
Yeah, but it sounds better.
How much better?
You can actually overlay it properly.
That's true.
Okay,
That's
guys.
true.
All right. Well, we'll be back, and we'll be talking about some community, and hopefully we'll find ourselves a community. But just remember, till then, write it down. I don't know.
I don't know if Raviv remembers to plug in our socials, but just in case, remember to like and subscribe, hit the notification bell on YouTube, follow us on our social medias, whatever they are
I think we need
at
to.
this point.
We haven't posted on in so long. At least subscribe.
Yeah, at least subscribe. We're kind of going through some stuff right now, but we'll try and get back on it
Yeah.
someday.
All right. Well, you guys take care. We're gonna get out of here.
Bye.
Thank you for watching In the Works by Brandon Musa. Subscribe and like for more.